In this week's episode of Truth UnCoiled, we are breaking down the Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie saga. I know it is long and exhausting, but it is fascinating. And you guys, it's still going. But I am telling you, this is one of the most, I think, advantageous divorces of all time. It started with controversy, it ended with controversy, and it just continues to go. So it's fascinating to me as a divorce attorney, as an attorney, to look at the legalese that has been happening in this case. And it just makes you think like people with a lot of money can just fight over a lot of crap. You know, there's the team Brad Pitt, there's the team Angelina Jolie, and whatever side you're on, there is a lot of crap in between. And I don't think either one of them are innocent in this. And it's something that let's just talk about. So the way that this marriage started in controversy is because Brad Pitt was married to Jennifer Aniston, right? It was like the dream couple of the early 2000s. They had been married for 5 years, and then all of a sudden it just like ended. And everybody was like, what is going on? Like, and it was right after Jolie and Pitt appeared in 2004's Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Well, as soon as Jennifer Aniston and Brad Pitt's marriage ended, then here comes obviously Pitt and Jolie were spotted together for the first time. So obviously speculation and all of this stuff came out that he cheated on Jennifer Aniston with Angelina Jolie. And this is where I'm just like, first of all, ticked because I feel like he robbed her of her best years. That's what I feel. And I feel bad for Jennifer Aniston. She's talked a little bit about how she wanted a kid and you know, after she broke up with Brad Pitt, obviously she had didn't have great relationships. And, you know, by the time she finally realized she really didn't want to have a child, it was too late. Like, it's just kind of sad. And then Angelina Jolie. I mean, like, even though Brad Pitt was the one who was married and Angelina Jolie was not, like, don't look at her and think that she's innocent of it. Like, it takes two to have an affair. She knew he was married. And Angelina Jolie had been known for being kind of a, I don't know, a rebel, like in Hollywood. Her relationship with her dad. She was married to Billy Bob Thornton. They were in like a very tumultuous and what she says abusive relationship. So there's just a lot to unpack there. And when they got together, she had adopted two children, Sahara in 2005 and Pax in 2007. Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie were together and they had three biological children together. They had Shiloh and then they had twins, Knox and Vivian. Now, Jolie adopted her first son, Maddox, in 2002. Then she adopted Sahara and Pax, like I said. But Brad Pitt ended up adopting all of them. And so he is the legal father to all six of those children. Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie just stayed together for years. In 2014, they ended up having a ceremony. And that's because it was really important to their kids. In fact, I thought it was really cute because she wore a wedding dress where her kids like drew on it. I thought that was really cute and really cool. Like, not even a year, 2 years later, just like it all went to hell in a handbasket. Something happened where the parties were on a private airplane together and an incident happened. They both recall the incident very, very differently. Angelina Jolie has made it that Brad Pitt was drinking and very intoxicated and was abusive. He threw a glass at her and then he hit or abused their son, Maddox, their oldest son. She has then come out and said that Maddox was trying to protect her. And Brad Pitt's argument has always been that, yes, I was drinking, but it did not rise to the level of this abuse. But as soon as that flight and landed on the ground, I mean, like, that was it. Like, she filed a restraining order against Brad Pitt, which was signed. So he didn't see his kids for a few weeks until he got into court. Once he got into court, he stipulated with Angelina Jolie that I'll just do supervised visitation. I'll go to therapy with kids, trying to, work things out, which he did. And the temporary restraining order was ended up being dismissed because nobody found evidence that there was actual abuse. In fact, the FBI ended up having to investigate this because it was up in the airplane. And so people didn't have jurisdiction. It was this whole thing. And every investigation that happened came down and said that there wasn't this abuse that Angelina Jolie was talking about. And it didn't rise to the level of Brad Pitt, like losing his kids. Brad Pitt goes through therapy. He then asked the court for like a custody evaluation or whatever California's, like an expert to come in and evaluate. And through their divorce, he says, I want 50-50 of my kids. I want to have a relationship with my kids. And I say this all the time, like, you can be a crappy husband, but you can be a good dad. And I think in this case, like, Angelina just was like, you're a bad husband, you're a bad dad. Therefore, the 10 years that we were together doesn't mean anything. The fact that you're the legal dad of six of these children doesn't mean anything. I mean, and she has maintained till this day that Brad Pitt should not see the kids, basically. Like every time she files a new pleading, something new comes up about his abuse or what he's done. And it's just been, it just keeps coming. And Brad Pitt has, admitted that he's wasn't perfect in the past, that his drinking was a problem. But he stopped drinking and he has been sober for several years and believed that he had done all the work to be able to have a relationship with his dad. Some people are claiming, well, too little, too late. I don't ever believe that. I think if people are really wanting to change for the better, that chances should be made. And I think kids should have the opportunity to have a good relationship with their dad, a good relationship with their mom. But those kids do not have a good relationship with Brad. Brad fought years. I mean, I think it took 3 years to finally get into trial with the judge to asking for custody, and the judge granted him joint custody of these kids, 50-50. And some of the kids refused to go. Angelina Jolie appealed that. It's just been this ongoing fight. And it's interesting because what I've seen is that, Brad Pitt has maintained, I just want a relationship with my kids, however that looks. Just don't hinder me from having a relationship. It's never been this like pressing. He's always, from the outlook of things, he's wanted to do the way that he can on their terms, on them feeling safe and, working through it through therapy, through evaluations. And then we found out like Shiloh turned 18 and right on her birthday, she decided to file a petition with the court to drop Pitt from her last name. And we know that, one of their 15-year-old twins is in Broadway and she hasn't put Pitt on her accolades as well. And it could just be that they don't want hyphenated names but Shiloh doing it was an outward, I think, expression of what her thoughts are. Because going back to the custody, when I told you that, Brad had fought for 5 years, finally got custody, the judge had given him custody. It was very short lived because she appealed it. The appellate court overturned everything that their judge had done in their case for the last 5 years because I guess there was this random, like super rare, like they were connected somehow in business dealings, like whether Brad was like owned a company and this judge was somehow invested in it. So the appellate court just said that it was shady and therefore because of that connection they undid everything that that judge had done. I would imagine Brad's like, oh my gosh, my youngest kids are 15. Like, why am I going to continue to fight this if they want to? But it seems like the twins, the 15-year-olds, are the ones that have the most visitation with him. And now that his other kids are 18, maybe he can softly, repair a relationship with them. I don't know. They're divorced. They were legally divorced in 2019. Like the judge said, you are legally divorced, which allowed them to, but all of their other issues, custody and their property, were reserved. And their biggest fight that they have had regarding property is this French vineyard called Chateau Miraval. This chateau was, what Brad Pitt said was his baby. He loved it. He owned 60% of it. Him and Angelina Jolie went into business with it. It was 40% her, 60% him. When they got married, they equaled it out to 50-50. And so after this divorce, Brad's been fighting for it. He's wanted it. He's wanted to be able to buy her out of it. And instead of letting him do that, Angelina Jolie ended up selling her share. And I mean, obviously that really, really upset him. And because it was giving them 50%, it was making it so that Brad couldn't make any decisions with it. And basically, he filed with the court saying that she did this purposely to just make his life harder, to make it so that basically he was losing, this asset that he really, really wanted. In the lawsuit, he claimed that because he owned 60% when they got married, that Angelina Jolie should have to give back 10% of that he had given her when they got married in 2014, and the court agreed. So they ended up saying that Brad owned 60%, Angelina only owed 40%, so she could only sell 40% of her shares, which would allow Brad Pitt to be the controlling owner of it. Now, as of February 2024, it seems like because of the resolution of the French property, the vineyard, that the parties are very, very close to coming to an agreement. Now, no agreement as of today has been filed, but it would be amazing if they could get divorced before 2025, or they could settle all their issues because they have been fighting for 10 years. 10 years. I mean, that's just a lot. And I'm sure they're both tired of it. But at the end of the day, there's always the questions of who is doing it to who, and it seems Angelina Jolie was playing it a little bit dirtier than Brad Pitt. But hopefully they're able to resolve their issues and they're able to move forward. And they are a perfect example of what not to do when getting divorced. Just don't do that. Don't be Brangelina. It doesn't work. That's this episode of Truth Uncoiled. Stay tuned next week.